This is legitimately crazy as Max Pacioretty, of all people, had one of the best preseason games we've seen in a while. We also saw Nikita Grebenkin get in a fight, and then Max Pacioretty once again with another goal. The Toronto Maple Leafs have concluded their first preseason game, and they did ultimately lose, but that's not what matters in this game. What matters is the other things that happen, and there's a lot to be fired up about. So I'm going to break all it down in this episode, but before I do, if you're part of the 70 or so percent who aren't subscribed to the channel, make sure to hit that button. It would mean the world of Darius and myself. But Darius, we're recording this right after the game, and for first of all, it's good to see that hockey is finally back in the first game under Craig Berube's new system with the new personnel, and they had a pretty loaded lineup against the Ottawa Senators tonight, and they weren't able to get it done, but it was a thriller nonetheless. And at this point, the result doesn't matter. It only matters in a couple weeks from now. But taking some messages from this game, taking some learning curves for a lot of the players out of this game is going to be important. But I'm going to start this video by saying, what a game by Max Pacioretty, and me being on the Max Pacioretty train before he was even a Leaf is starting to age better. I'm going to have to get his jersey to put behind my wall. But Darius, what a game for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Legitimately crazy that Max Pacioretty got 2 goals and almost ended it with a hat trick in overtime, which ultimately led to the game-winning goal by the Ottawa Senators rookie defenseman who looks phenomenal. But how are your thoughts on this game, Darius? What were your thoughts on the game? And Craig Berube's first game with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and Max Pacioretty shined in this one, and there's tons to go over, but Pacioretty, what a night for him, and he looks better than I have ever seen him in the past handful of years, even when he was healthy.
Yeah, he said before the game that he feels better than he has in years as well. So clearly there is something to that. And there was a lot to like in this game, honestly, but there was also a lot that I did not like, and we'll get to that probably later in the video. Let's keep it optimistic for now, at least, because we do have to look at everything. But you know what? The top guys, we're probably going to gloss over it. They looked fantastic. And then when you look at the bottom 6, or, you know, whatever the bottom 6 was today, I thought it looked pretty good too. Grebenkin was there. I thought Tavares looked great. And we had that third line for most of the game of Tavares, Grebenkin, and Pacioretty. Pacioretty, obviously, with 2 goals and setting up the game tying goal with like so much poise, right? No panic at all in his game. He was able to set up that goal. I loved everything from Pacioretty today. He looked quick, like obviously not the fastest player on the ice, but he looked quick for what I remember him being, especially over the last couple seasons. He was using his body, throwing his body around, getting to the front of the net, which a lot of Leafs have not done in the last couple of years. So getting to the front of the net, that's how he scored one of his goals. Really like his game. And obviously we'll get to Grebenkin in a second, but on the topic of Max Pacioretty, yes, it's one game, but lots to like. He says he's feeling good. He looks good. He scored 2 goals, and he's getting to the dirty areas. So there's a lot to like if you're a Leafs fan. And congratulations, Nick, because so far you look like you're on the right side of that for sure.
Yeah, and obviously, now granted, he looks very healthy, and that's the most important thing, was his health, because of the multiple injuries to his Achilles that he suffered last season, 2 in the same Achilles. So him being healthy is very good. The fact that he can come out and look like I'm not going to go as far as saying the prime Max Pacioretty, and it is only one preseason game, but 2 goals, 1 assist. Like, it would have been hard for him to do that last year. I don't know the exact number at the top of my head. I'm not sure how many games last year he scored 2 goals in one game, if any. And the fact that he's doing this already is very, very encouraging for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And if Max Pacioretty can continue to do that and man the third line, this team is going to be very, very scary. And we'll get into the negatives here in a minute, but what a game for Max Pacioretty. And again, let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on his first preseason game. Now, again, the first game with Craig Berube, and I'll get your thoughts on what you're seeing from the defense, seeing from all these other coaches, Mark Savard, Lane Lambert. We saw Lane Lambert talk to Mitch Marner and give him they were having a back and forth conversation mid-game. But now we also saw the young guy, and this is going to be the topic of this video, probably topic for videos going forward. Obviously, Easton Cowan also played, but Nikita Grebenkin stole the show tonight. He got in a fight halfway through the third. He looked very good. Everything that has been said in camp so far is that Nikita Grebenkin, whether it's from Coach Craig Berube, whether it's from even Brad Treliving, and from his teammates himself, he looks like he's NHL ready at this point. He's moving like he's NHL ready, and tonight did a lot to prove that. And he also backed up his team in kind of Matthew Nyes versus the Bruins in the playoff style. Granted, it's only a preseason game, and got his hands dirty with a fight here, and one of multiple fights that almost broke out this game.
Yeah, I believe we first started talking about Grebenkin back in July. I think that's when we first started kind of talking about him and the possibility of him being on the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I said, if he's able to acclimate himself quickly to the North American game, then yes, I do see him on the Toronto Maple Leafs. If not, then he'll spend some time in the Marlies. Well, after tonight, I think that this guy is going to make the team. And I know there's a lot of people that are going to be like, how could you possibly say that after one game? I think Craig Berube, and like most Leaf fans right now, has fallen in love with this player. I honestly do, based on everything he's said in training camp so far and everything he's said about him and his evaluation of the player. If you watch tonight, it's all true. It's exactly what Craig Berube is saying. He uses his body. He's physical, right? And he's a dog on the puck. Whenever there's a loose puck or a defenseman skating backwards to grab the puck, he is on that player, right? He's going to get the puck. And most times, nobody's as good as Austin Matthews with his stick in terms of stripping pucks, but this guy was using his body to his advantage. So obviously had the fight, which I think Craig Berube loves, and the Leafs need probably maybe not more fighting, but when stuff like this happens, it's nice that a couple guys on the team can drop the gloves. Even Domi, guys like that. Reeves had a fight tonight, like you mentioned too. So love that from this player in this game. He looked good on the third line. I think there's a very real possibility that he makes the team at this point.
Yeah, and I gave you a bit of a clip there. I also gave you some little bits of the Pacioretty goal. I can't get enough of Max Pacioretty, but he looks so good. But you mentioned the Grebenkin fight. Yeah, we've been talking about it now for a few months, and the big question mark was, can he play at the North American level, especially off rip? He's super young. But every single thing, and you mentioned how it's just one preseason game, but it's not just that. The entire training camp, even into the offseason, there was comments made by the coach, by Brad Living, about his offseason work that is now translated into training camp and how good he looks, which ultimately has led and translated into his first game in the NHL preseason. I guess it's still preseason, but honestly, the game was looking like, and they were playing like it was not preseason. They were getting in fights, they were throwing bodies around, throwing hits. Like it was pretty good. And huge shout out to Grebenkin in this game. And I do want to get your thoughts on a couple of other things. Now, you can mention Craig Berube. Obviously, there was some interesting things, not with Craig Berube necessarily. The defense looked a little bit slow, I think is the best word to put it. We discussed it off camera. Cade Weber, pretty bad game. Chris Tanev, going to give him a pass, but he looked a little bit slow out there. Granted, I'm sure it's his 13th preseason game, or preseason year. So right. He probably was taking it a bit slower than some of the other guys, but there was a little bit of concerning things. The goaltending wasn't phenomenal, which was because of the lack of defense that was shown. Nothing to be too concerned about yet, but what were your first impressions on Craig Berube's team, whether it's the defensive end and Cade Weber to a degree, because I know you were a bit fired up about him mid-game.
Yeah, well, for Cade Weber, you know what? I'm managing expectations. Just because he had a bad game doesn't mean he's a bad player. I think he's going to go down to the Marlies and be a fine player eventually at one point, but he's probably not long for this team, right? Like he's going to be on the Marlies. But anyway, aside from that, there was a lot of things that changed tonight that we are not used to, and I think that's a good thing. And maybe they didn't look great tonight, right? But they will probably look great at some point as the players get acclimated to it and the roster kind of shrinks and we get closer to what the team will look like exactly. One thing I noticed is a lot more dump and chase. Like when, Sheldon Keefe was around, there's a lot of puck possession and trying to gain the zone. And I feel like they were dumping and chasing a lot today and trying to create chances by using their physicality and maybe kick it back to the point and create some scoring chances. And it doesn't always work out, but sometimes it did. It did a couple of times tonight with Max Pacioretty. So I do like that. There was a lot of that. I found that, whenever there was a broken play or nobody was available, they would kick it down low behind the net instead of up to the point and kind of do that umbrella thing they've been doing for the last couple of years where they'll have a forward beside the defenseman and kind of play with it around the point and then nothing ever happens. So I like that they were kind of throwing it behind the net, creating offense from that as well. Late in the game too, when Nylander tied the game, their new power play structure has Tavares and Pacioretty in front of the net, which is a nightmare for other teams, right? That's a really good combination for the Leafs.
Something we talked about a lot with Pacioretty.
Definitely, yeah. And one thing too with the power play is Matthews was behind the net. Like he's not in a shooting position, so it kind of messes up other teams, but they're creating offense and certain plays, set plays from behind the net now. That's new. Like I haven't seen that. So it was very refreshing. A couple things tonight that was a breath of fresh air. And again, we'll touch on the defense in the future too. I'm going to chalk it up to it being the first game and maybe running new systems. Tanev, again, he's older. A bunch of the top guys didn't really look like they were trying too hard tonight anyway. So I'll chalk it up to that, and I'm sure they'll figure it out. And they're still figuring out the pairings. I wouldn't revisit OEL and McCabe ever again, but even though it's one game, wouldn't do that. But there was a lot of other stuff to like too. So I'm going to chalk that up to a changing in the system, and they'll get used to things pretty quickly here, I think.
Yeah, it's the first time in a very long time we saw different things, whether it's Matthews behind the net, whether it's just a lot of these new different style of defensemen the Leafs had. I feel like they haven't had marquee defensemen aside from obviously Morgan Rielly, but Morgan Rielly finally now, in theory, has a marquee defenseman in Chris Tanev on his side. So it'll be very interesting to see. We also, again, signed William Nylander at center. He had a goal. He obviously was moved to the wing later in the game. Like Craig Berube said he was going to do. He was going to manage it, see how it goes. And I think whether or not he was having a phenomenal game at center or not, they were going to move him to the wing just to see how things were going, get some other looks. But yeah, the power play is looking good. The PK, which they had to do a lot of with all the penalties. Matthew Nyes very early in the game. Matthew Nyes also scored a goal. The focus, though, today was on obviously the younger guys, and we didn't speak too much on the top guys because they're going to be the story of the season all year long. But before we wrap up, Darius, any quick thoughts on Easton Cowan's first game with the Toronto Maple Leafs? I thought he played okay. He skated. Looks like he's skating very well out there. Was throwing his body around more than I expected tonight. But ultimately, I think Grebenkin stole the show a little bit with how he played. And I do ultimately think Grebenkin might be the leader right now to make the team out of camp after Easton Cowan's 9 games are up.
I do agree. And yes, it is only one preseason game, but Grebenkin came in and made a statement today. He's older. Easton Cowan has the option to go back to the OHL. So I think, as it stands right now, Grebenkin maybe makes the team over him. But it's not to say that I didn't like Easton Cowan's game. Like you said, smooth skater. He was skating really well out there, using his body way more than I thought, right? He was stripping pucks away from Ottawa defenders every shift, and he was out there throwing the body around with Ryan Reeves. He was playing on the 4th line. I would have liked to see him get some more ice, but I think he's going to in some more games in the future. He's not going down anytime soon, that's for sure. And he'll probably get into a game where, he might be playing in the top 6 at some point, because if Matthews and Nylander sit out, because they're going to in one of these games coming up here. So I think he's going to see more ice, but today was okay. He played fine. He just wasn't put in too many good opportunities, but I think he will, and they're really going to give him a good look here.
Yeah, let us know your thoughts are in the comments about this game. The first of many are underway and over at this point, and I'm very happy, Darius, I don't know about you, that Maple Leafs hockey is back in some sort of capacity, and it looks very, very different. So let us know what your thoughts are. Let us know what you saw from Craig Berube that changed and excited you. We'll see you guys tomorrow.